Well, folks, as you can see, I have Aristo with me again, and this is the video for the June the 2nd, and the title is Days of Our Lives. Aristo?
Hi, Ron. It's good to be on again. Ron wanted me, just to note, that he wanted me to be on tomorrow so we can put the video on June the 3rd, which is my birthday. And I told him, and that's one of the reasons I labeled this Days of Our Lives. The other reason is because, maybe this can be a looser topic of conversation. There's a lot of things in my head that, I would like to, and in my heart sometimes, but that I would like to talk about. And it's very hard for me to concentrate everything into one single topic all the time. Like I said, these are like unscripted types of conversations, but sometimes there are things on my mind that I would like to talk about. My birthday isn't one of them.
Right. Well, by the way, as I probably have mentioned to you, it's also my brother's birthday.
Yes, yes.
Only surviving brother. I have a brother whose birthday was June 10th, but he was the one that was killed. They were 1 week apart, 2 years. 1 week, 2 years.
1 week apart. Yeah. Okay. Well, happy birthday to him. That's the thing about the internet. All your private information is out. Not that birthdays are a big deal in a sense, but in another sense, it's your personal New Year's. And people have New Year's resolutions. They have New Year's commitments. People are superstitious about New Year's. Something that happens at New Year's maybe will affect the whole year. And there may be some truth behind that. Similarly, the same is true for your birthday. It's your new year. It begins the days of your life on Earth. And so you want the day to be, special in some way. I don't really care about that it's special or anything. What I do care about is that in these times when privacy is basically questioned,
I don't think there's any true privacy.
Exactly. It's something like that. And there are implications on this. There are implications about the more external implications. The obvious ones are people spying on you, collecting your information, trying to typecast you, and you say, so what? Well, if your thoughts are not congruent with the thoughts of an ever strict establishment, you might find yourself in trouble. Back in the 50s, if people, in the United States at least, if people were thinking along certain lines, if they were a little too liberal, they could lose their jobs, their reputations, they were branded communist, whatever. If people, these days you have all these forums on the internet where pagans come out. I'm a pagan, or it's vogue and fashionable in some way. Well, in the American 50s in suburbia, you were going around saying, I'm a pagan. You would really,
Well, the big religion now is the flat earthers.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
It doesn't matter what shape it is. I don't believe in flat earth, but...
Well, the flat earthers, a lot of them, they promote implications. And the implications are that the earth is an artificial construct and it is, held in, and we are trapped, and we are in a laboratory with some petri dish from some alien. So and the alien is presenting themselves as God and torturing us and blah, blah, blah. So
I think there's truth to some of that.
It does seem that way.
Most likely, anyway.
Of course, because that is the reality. You see, the Matrix is also part of the days of our lives. And I don't hear that word expressed as much as it used to be. Over the last few years, it became less and less frequent. And you say, well, yes, of course, it's a fad. People get sick of it. Well, of course it is. But there's a lot of things that people don't get sick of because they're repeated again and again. I see many articles or memes that I've seen years ago, like 10 years ago, and all of a sudden they're up again as if they're new. And people are posting them as if this is a new thing. And I think these things do the rounds. I think the Matrix, the internet.
Agree. I see the recycling of things that I've seen some years ago.
Exactly. And some things are recycled in order to test the population. Well, have people changed? Are their reactions different? Is the new generation now reacting differently? Some things are to keep the repeating, because even the Nazis said if you repeat it often enough, it becomes the reality. And so, you know, we're being brainwashed or attempted brainwashing, and it is insidious. And there are levels of reality that perhaps in the 80s and 90s, or even earlier, I mean, when it wasn't so vogue and wasn't so public with the internet, you could get away with thinking, at least. You could get away with alternative thinking, and as long as you didn't talk about it overtly. But if you did talk about it, you know, you could have everybody turn against you. People are very much into normalization. They're very much into let's all be alike. And even individuality now has become a normal, oh, I'm an individual, I'm unique. We're all unique. Let's all be unique together, you know.
Yeah, well, I've seen it in some of my spiritual groups, unfortunately, where they say politics is negative, so it's for forbidden subject. And so that puts me at odds with practically everybody in the spiritual communities that I was part of for so long.
Your spiritual communities wanted to get away from the secular. Many spiritual communities do that. That used to be the definition of spiritual communities. Perhaps they should have called it something else. You know, I don't blame them for that attitude. But
in my communities, they call themselves metaphysicians.
Yeah, exactly. And they want to be, just that will tell you that they want a sort of legitimate image. They don't want to be bothered. They go there in order to address things that they can't address anywhere else with like-minded people, and they don't want to be bothered. So I wouldn't call it an escape necessarily, but it's something where they say, I heard them talking, you know, some of their opinions on your site, and Ron, you're bringing us down. You know, you're bringing all these things that we know about, we can't do anything about. What do you want us to do? I mean, we're here to look at the stuff that isn't part of the world. And that is still part of us, but it isn't part of the world. The world doesn't allow us to express these other things. We want to find fulfillment through these things that are not part of politics. In a way, I agree with in some ways. Again, I'm going all over the place. That's why I'm saying days of our lives. I'm saying that, look, life is complicated, it's complex, and it's made overcomplicated, even by our attempts to simplify it. Because when we try to simplify something that's naturally complex, we can end up repressing things that come through and end up atrophying our own ability to understand it. We may end up dumbing ourselves down because we are avoiding stress. At the same time, if we keep trying to stress ourselves, we may end up dumbing ourselves down because our own bodies are like, enough is enough. You know, you yourself succumb to stress. You had, you know, it just, the whole viewpoint, if it doesn't serve you, then it needs to be altered, discarded, reevaluated. Religious viewpoints, everything. Nothing is written in stone. There are no 10 commandments written in stone where things have to be like that. Even the laws of physics are not laws. They're just ways. Some people even say they're habits of the universe. So our whole dynamic of life, you know, it starts with ourselves, and we have waves upon waves of influences, and sometimes coming to conclusions is empowering, because if you sit on the fence all day and do nothing else but just have a neutral opinion and never come to any conclusions, then you can't act. But at the same time, forcing yourself to a conclusion, or always having a conclusion because you want all the bases covered and everything, all the circles made square, because it's easier that way. It's less of a strain on your already atrophied mind, you know. And of course it's atrophy. Everything is, we have hyperstimulation. That's ridiculous. We're being bombarded by too much information that's we don't need, we don't want. It's junk information. We're also bombarded by stresses and threats and impositions, and we don't know where they're coming from. And if we really examine it, one of the reasons that, aside from personal experiences, why I actually went into esoteric thinking, even though it defied my social consensus, it defied, you know, my scientific upbringing and all of that, was because the regular explanations seemed too contrived to me. They made sense, of course, because I was taught to perceive them that way. But they offered no solutions. And then people say, well, there are no solutions. Wait, why?
Some people say that the only solution is dying and going to a different dimension.
Some people say that that's not even an option. You know, some people say that, well, you're a glitch and you live for how many years you live and then it's over and that's that, you know. And we don't know, see? And we can't stand our insecurity, which to me is, look, insecurity is just a feeling. And if you embody that feeling and you accept it and circulate it and digest it, because what I've been exploring through my esoteric researches is, well, on self and everything and practices, is that just as the Taoists believe, and, you know, people who practice internal alchemy in the Eastern philosophies and stuff, you can digest your negativity. You can digest it. Your body is made in such a way that the physical digestion physiology has a energy counterpart. It has a subtle counterpart where you can digest emotions, you can digest negative thoughts, you can digest perceptions, and you can
actually digest is a one word you could use, but you can actually transform. In, at least from my perception, you can transform what you perceive as negative, and it doesn't have the same effect as if you're always in fear, because you feel like
it's true.
you have some control over how you handle it. Maybe not
Exactly.
the actual external, but how you respond to it or react to it.
That is a rational explanation. It makes complete sense. And the only problem with that explanation is it doesn't offer a handle. How do you do this? You know, and there's many ways that people offer how to do this. The word digestion, however, and I've always been one to favor physical metaphors because we know the body. We know the body. We know how the body works. We are the body. We experience it. So if I say, well, transform that can be anything. It doesn't really tell us anything, and it's turned into a cliche. And people talk about it, and nobody really, I don't even see it working, you know. I see a lot of denial. I see a lot of pushing. I see a lot of coping. Coping is not transformation. Dealing with the emotion while you're pushing it away, and it's pushing you, and you're pushing it, and it's torturing you, that is a form of coping because you are still functional. But you're going to break in the end, or you're going to wear down. It's not, you know, really transformation. Transmutation is basically where you turn the essence into something else. That's even more difficult to understand. That's like alchemy, so to speak. And how the hell does that even work? So, you know, let's take the same thing and just change the word and say digestion. Why? Because digestion takes nutrients out of any given raw material, spits out the waste products, which act as fertilizer for the environment, unless we pile them all on a different place. But if we are very careful, you see, true digestion of energies and experiences needs to be done in a thoughtful manner. You chew your food slowly. You don't think negative. You don't get stressed while you're eating. You appreciate the food that you do eat. You enjoy the taste if you can. And, you know, always try to eat something tasteful. And when you do, you know, release your waste, you don't just dump on other people. You don't just dump anywhere. You dump in a place where that waste can be taken care of, given back to the environment in a way that will fertilize it. So the waste product itself is not bad. It just needs to be processed in its own way. You're responsible for your waste. You're responsible for the food you eat. You are what you eat. And right now, we're all eating trash, physically and energetically and mentally, through the days of our lives. See how I can give you any topic I please and just talk about anything and still make it part of the topic. But it's difficult for people to consider transformation in this way. So everybody has an alleged opinion. The word opinion for me is completely a neutralization of conviction. It's a way to weaken people. Everybody has an opinion. They're like assholes, and that's fine, which means they're full of shit. So opinions are waste products, and we have to go spit them out somewhere where there aren't any other people. Basically, shut the fuck up. That's the whole opinion thing. But it seems so rational. And the real motive is because everybody cannot take opposing views. And so we all argue like children, or we agree to disagree. Well, what's the point of sharing information if we all just are the same as when we left? then you don't share information. Well, most people share information. They're not sharing, they're dumping, they're giving it, they're teaching, and
or
stuff.
trying to convince.
Or trying to convince. So this is what I'm doing. I'm not listening to anybody, at this point, and that's okay. I'm not saying, you can't, generalizing is itself a trap, but specializing is also a trap. Things are complicated. Simplifying, if I say don't simplify anything, then you get overwhelmed. If I say keep simplifying, then you end up dumbing down your reality frame. You end up dumbing down yourself without even knowing it. You end up fighting to keep things simple until they're so simple, there's really nothing left but whatever is being spoon-fed to you. If you do not chew your food, eventually you can't digest it. So somebody comes along and gives you pre-chewed food. They give you a liquid diet. And in the end, that's all you'll be able to eat. You'll vomit anything because you forgot how to chew. If you eat stuff that just tastes good and is addictive and yet has no nutritional value, it will leach out your nutrients. So the information we take, the thoughts we have, the emotions that we feel, everything is, we can take all of this and focus on our bellies, where digestion really does take place. If we can get out of our heads, we can ease the burden on our hearts and take it down to our gut. I've said this in videos before. If anybody wants a method, it's very, very simple. Just focus on your gut, your center of mass. Your center of mass is also your center of balance. It's not up here and it's not up here. It's not even down there. It is a little lower. It's where most of your mass collects. Martial artists do it and they can perform physical wonders. And it's a very, very simple, it's not the solution, the be all and end all, but it can help you go through the days of your life. Many people do this and yet they still have problems. Of course you do.
That's the world we live in.
It's, even if it wasn't the world we live in, we would still need nutrition. We would still need to eat, so to speak. We will still need to digest. We cannot have a deity, for example, or a parental figure pre-digesting our reality for us. Let's take this again. When we started our conversations, I guess the first one, since it is close to my birthday, might as well go back to how we began. It was the story of Job, I think. And I brought it up because he reminded me a little about you, You're sitting here and you have this faith in the deity, and your faith is constantly tested because shit happens. And it's not just shit happening to you like it happened to Job. You see shit happening to everybody and take it personally, So you're reacting like Job for stuff that happens to other people, And then all these people come and just like Job's pals, they give you all this advice. Well, God is this, God is that, God is the other. In the end, what was even the point of the story of Job? I mean, you know this. You tell me.
The point of the story of Job?
Yeah. What's the official point? I mean, what do the Christians actually say? Well, what is it? What is it all about? It's the oldest story in the Bible.
Well, God has everything under control and it's being worked out. I mean, but I don't see it today. I mean, I don't see it the same today as I did 3 years ago, for example.
Yes.
I mean, when again, to beat a dead horse, when they took my house, that changed a lot of my psychology because I thought that house was the gift to enable me to do what I came on this earth to do. So,
that was your conclusion. Maybe it wasn't.
Challenge.
Yes, it was. And it's a terrible thing. But at the same time, and I don't believe in justifying these kinds of things. I do believe in capitalizing on it. I do believe in using every experience as a resource. And because that's what's on your plate, that's what you eat. If something's on your plate that you can't eat, then I believe that you do have the ability to set it aside and ask for something else. That's what we would call manifesting our reality. But the thing is, if we get so bombarded with crap, it's very hard, to distinguish and pick out something that we really need. And other times we get so picky that I have this cat now, and he's like not eating anything. He wants a certain type of food, open the can and give him the fresh thing, and then he'll eat it. But as soon as it's 5 minutes old, he doesn't want it anymore. So it's almost like that. Sometimes we get, I know reality should be beautiful, it should be wonderful, it should be ecstatic, it should be this and that and the other. You live in a paradise, but all of a sudden it's a war zone. And so you need to take care of the war. You don't have to fight like they tell you to fight, but you need to somehow take care of the war, because those are the circumstances in which you find yourself. It doesn't matter about deities. Oh, I can't live if that's not true. I can't live if that's not true. Well, then, you are dependent on what the hell is going on. And that's true to a certain point. But ask yourself, is it better to just submit, or will you push the boundaries of what you can, of where you collapse, to get stronger, to be able to stand up, and to experience the empowerment of learning to create your own reality, of learning to be a master of your fate, or at least someone who navigates it with better proficiency than just falling down at the smallest provocation, or even a medium provocation, or even a provocation that's tremendous according to your current mindset. Nobody sets the boundaries but ourselves. We do, no matter what we experience. But that doesn't mean we can sit back and say, oh, give it to me, I can take it, punish me, just give me whatever you got. No, don't give it to me. That's what I say. That's what a lot of people say. That's what sane people, that's what heroes say. Don't do it. I don't want to fight. I don't want to go there. I don't want to. Adventures are for fools and for people who don't know what it's like to suffer through all of these things, to going out. I want my home, my security, my predictability, all of these things,
Predictability is out the window these days, though, for most people.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, and in the end, the soul gets bored of all that. That's the whole story of the Garden of Eden for me, to put another biblical context. It was boring. There was nothing going on. There was, it was like a zoo, a menagerie. That's what the Hebrew word Oden, which is translated as garden, organ, I'm sorry, gardens, but Oden means an enclosure. It means a park. It means, essentially, it's a zoo. So the so-called garden was a zoo where this so-called deity kept his, prized a sample of creations. And it was also thought to be not physical, not corporeal, essence. And the word knowledge, fruit of the tree of knowledge, can be translated as experience, carnal knowledge, carnal experience. So this is the tree of actually getting out of the zoo and into the wild world where shit happens and you're not taken care of. So once we go out of the wild world, the whole relationship to deity changes, or whatever you want to call it, in that context again. I'm not saying this is the truth or whatever. But I am saying that even the Christian context justifies it because they had to, because they experienced the crap world. And then they go, then the people of the Old Testament turned around and said, oh, but we're taken care of. God has come back and said, okay, I like you guys because you guys are obedient. But even if you're not, I like you better than everybody else. So you're my people,
Yeah, the chosen race.
Chosen race or whatever, and everybody else. Exactly. And then the Savior comes along that says, no, everybody's the chosen race. Or did he? Technically, from what I understand, Jesus never said everybody's the chosen race. There was a biblical thing of go out and, there's biblical phrases that justify that, but nobody knows if they've been put in later, if the Pauline doctrine basically was the one that took, because there was a conflict in the early church. That's what we were taught in school, where, a part of the church, namely the faction of Peter and James, for example, wanted to remain Nazareans were Hebrews, were Jews. They didn't want to go out and bring the Gentiles into the picture. And then the Pauline faction said, no, we have to go to the Roman Empire and just convert everybody, as many as we can. So and the Pauline faction won, especially after the establishment said, oh, look at this little religion. What we need, because they had a problem with diversity, the armies and militaries could not control the masses. There were just too many. Back in those days, you couldn't sustain an army big enough to control a wide territory with barbarians coming in every corner. Because it was okay once you conquered everybody that was there. But how about all the new people that were coming in over the borders? And so in the end, and there was corruption, and the population of Rome, you know, I read was the same for 500 years and more. But what increased was the population of slaves. So it was basically a society that needed to control people. And so they encouraged this religion. It became the state religion. Now, again, what does this have to do with the days of our lives? The days of our lives are very complex. There's information overload, but we are challenged. Our brains have a perceptual filter. First of all, we need, in my honest opinion, if we are, or it is advisable, to put a more politically correct twist on it, to reclaim that filter, to use it wisely, not to have it be used. Right now, most of us, in my honest opinion, actually conviction, is that our filter has been hijacked. So we are prompted emotionally, subconsciously, through reinforcement, positive and negative from our peers who are also brainwashed, to filter some things out that we should actually, that may be nutritious, to accept some things that are not nutritious. We are filtered to skew our digestion. Look at the physical. Look at what's going on in the rational plane. Everything you see can be taken as and I say this generally. I'm generalizing now, but it is a working dynamic. You can test it. Everything you see, try it. It's a metaphor for what goes on in the inner worlds. It's a metaphor for what goes on in spirit, in essence. People's dietary habits, you know, the toxification of our food supply, our water supply, our air supply, the atmospheric geoengineering, you know, which is more like anthropoengineering, social engineering, all of these engineerings. Everything is a metaphor for the inner essence. Just as the inner essence appears, according to the materialist mindset, a metaphor for what really goes on the outside. So my birthday is my personal New Year's, and I make a resolution to reclaim my own reality filter, to stand up to all of this. I have been doing this, you know, in my own life. I encourage others to do so, but to do so creatively in a way where no matter what society says, because the threat is that if you take over your own reality filter, they're going to call you insane because your reality won't agree with theirs. And a lot of people are. They do collapse because they're avoiding stress. So self-knowledge is important. The fact is, many shamans consider insanity or to be temporary. It is part of transformation. In order to ingest the foods you need, sometimes you have to reprogram or regrow your gut flora. You have to regrow the inhabitants in your gut that actually play such a role in your immune system and in your digestion and in your mood and in your health and everything. And this can be very stressful. You can go through withdrawal. It can take years, okay? So we're talking about the individual dealing with a collective level dynamic now, not somebody who's just trying to get better in a normal society. We're talking about a warfare that's at a level that if we can engage with it, we can avoid physical World War III. Why? Because the probability of World War III is a metaphor of something that's going on internally. Just like even in Christianity, the book of the apocalypse, all those Armageddon things were a metaphor that could be taken either way, either as a physical event or as a spiritual event or both. And the establishment is using those prophecies to promote its own problem, reaction, solution agenda, as many would say, and as I do too. So take all these things into account. Live the days of your lives with the intention of standing up and reclaiming who and what you are. Discover who and what you are on your own terms. Come to conclusions. Don't come to conclusions. Keep it simple. Keep it complex, but do it in your own way. And even when you say you do it in your own way, dare to question yourself without second guessing. Be the paradox man. For real. Okay, and I leave you with that. Thank you, everyone, and namaste or not. That's up to you.
Well, or aloha, as some say.
Or aloha, as some say. It used to be something I would say too. Yeah, aloha.
Okay, thanks, Aristo.
Okay.